Talking to someone who repeats back everything you say is tough, but teaching someone who does is even tougher. So what can you do if you're in the classroom and you have a student who has echolalia? Stay tuned for some strategies, tips, and tools of how to get that done, plus a free printable to help you along the way. In the early years of my career, I started out in elementary school. So picture me, fresh out of alt-cert, walking into a classroom full of students with disabilities, and very little experience to make me an expert. Most of us learn this way, right? Baptism by fire, learning on your feet, making it work in the moment. Let's face it, I was winging it. And some of you might be too. Well, in walks one student I had way back in the day named Johnny. That's not his real name. Johnny was the one that educated me on working with students who have autism. He had social and emotional deficits. He sometimes had violent behavior. He had some stimming behavior, a little bit of fidgeting, and most importantly, he had echolalia. He just repeated back the things that were just said to him, which could get a little frustrating for a teacher, especially one fresh out of alt-cert who didn't know what they were doing. Having a conversation with Johnny in the beginning looked a little bit like this. Johnny, what do you want for snack? Snack. Johnny, do you want an apple or cookies? Cookies. Do you want a cookie? Cookies. Here, Johnny, here's your cookie. Ah! Snack time. Every day. So let's break down what you can do if you're working with a student who has echolalia. As we start to talk about echolalia, I first want to get on my soapbox, I know, soapbox moment, and talk about presumed competence. If you've not watched my video about presumed competence, definitely check that out. But no matter what, as we work with students who have echolalia, we want to remember that they are in there, that the deficit that they're showing is an auditory and language processing deficit. And it's not that they have a low IQ or that they don't understand the words that are coming out of your mouth. So don't treat a student who has echolalia as if they are dumb. I know I shouldn't say it like that, but okay, I did. Don't treat them like they're less of a person because they have echolalia. So, like I said, if you haven't seen my video on presumed competence, definitely check that out. All right, let's talk about echolalia for a moment. Simply put, echolalia is repeating back what someone has said. That's a pretty simplistic definition, but at least then we can start on the same foot. So if you've worked with a student who repeats back either the last word that you've said or a repeated phrase, then you're dealing with a student who has echolalia. The good news is the student is communicating and talking. So we just need to figure out how to make that more neurotypical or at least functional. So the two different types of echolalia are delayed echolalia and immediate echolalia. We're going to start by talking about immediate because I feel like most people are pretty assumptive that this is what echolalia is. It would go something like this. Johnny, how are you today? Today. Johnny, did you want to watch TV? TV. Johnny, how are you feeling? Feeling. It's an immediate echolalia where a student is repeating back the last word or phrase that you've said. And it doesn't really make conversation that easy. Now remember, echolalia is actually part of normal language development. If you've ever talked to a toddler who repeats back everything you've said, then you know exactly what it looks like. So immediate echolalia, repeating back what you just said. Delayed echolalia is a little bit different. The student repeats back words or phrases that might not be in the conversation you are currently having. Here, a student might repeat back a word or phrase that they heard earlier that is part of their normal repetitive vocabulary, and it could look something like this. Johnny, do you want to take a break? Here we go. Huh? The student is repeating back a phrase that isn't in the conversation in the moment, but that phrase is something that they've heard or referenced earlier. So delayed echolalia, the phrase might not be in the conversation in the moment, it's just something that the student has heard or repeats frequently, versus immediate echolalia, what you just said. Immediate echolalia and delayed echolalia really do have two different purposes, and they're part of two different speech development patterns. When you have a student who has immediate echolalia, you're having a conversation with them, they know they're supposed to say something in the moment, but they can't grasp or process the language and get it out. So they repeat what you've just said. The brain is able to do that easily without having to formulate a response get the brain to process it, and then get it physically out of your mouth. So immediate echolalia has a little bit different purpose as opposed to delayed echolalia. When we're talking about delayed echolalia, it's quite interesting that most students have a meaning or purpose behind the echolalic phrase when they say it. They might say, you might say, do you want to take a break? And Johnny says, here's Johnny. And you can't quite make the connection. But for the students, they might watch the Tonight Show reruns as part of their break at home. So when they say that phrase, it means they're getting ready to take a break and do something preferred. That connection is in their brain, even though it might not be obvious to you. But it's important to remember that delayed echolalic responses typically have an emotion or purpose attached to them, and that's why the student uses it or refers to it. It could convey a meaning, a feeling, a situation, a memory. We're not really sure exactly where that delayed connection comes from, but the student definitely knows what it's associated with. All right, now that we've got some firm footing of what echolalia is, let's talk about some strategies we can use in the classroom. A simple strategy to use in the classroom as you're working with a student who has echolalia is actually a sentence stem. We have to stop asking yes or no questions to our students who have immediate echolalia because all they do is repeat back the last word or phrase that you said. Do you want an apple? Yes or no? Yes or no. So it becomes very non-functional to continue to communicate this way. Try using a sentence stem instead. So you might say to a student, what do you want? I want. And the student has that repetitive echolalia that's immediate and says, I want. And then you use a crap ton of wait time and possibly some visual supports to get the student to complete that sentence appropriately. I love sentence stems because there's a variety of ones that you can use. I think it makes it easier to start to prompt a student as to what this communication sentence should look like or what the communication stream should look like. And it allows the student to focus on just the ending part of the sentence, which is the part that they have to fill in with information from in their head, as opposed to constructing the sentence and trying to figure out how to get their response started. So sentence stems are awesome. Caution though, when you're using sentence stems, especially in the beginning when you're starting with a student who has echolalia, you need a lot of wait time. A lot of wait time. Be prepared to offer a lot of wait time. Now, if you've tried wait time before and you're never exactly sure how much wait time to offer to a student, start by getting a baseline. The baseline question to ask a student is, what is your name? For most kids, they are able to produce a response in this situation because they've been asked that question so many times. So ask a student, what's their name? If it takes 5 seconds for them to say their name, then you know that their processing time and wait time is about 5 seconds. If it takes 10 seconds, if it takes 15 seconds, then you know exactly how much wait time you need to offer a student when you're asking them to do a skill that requires more processing. If a kid needs 5 seconds to produce their name, you might want to offer 5 to 10 seconds of wait time so that they can formulate the answer, especially if it's a question that they might not know exactly what they want or exactly what their response should be. So that's how you can establish wait time. The next strategy that you can use with a student who has echolalia, and this works for delayed and immediate, is scripting. I love scripting. It allows you to get a student to be more conversational with their communication, which really bridges the gap for social skills and social inclusion among peers. I worked with a student for several years on social scripting, social situations specifically, because his parents really wanted him to be able to communicate in a neurotypical way with his peers when they were out in the community and involved in their church. So scripting was the backbone of how we did this, and to this day, it still works with him. As in, 10 years after I've taught him, I will run into him in the community and I will start our script and he will complete it with me. It looks a little bit like this. Hi, Johnny.
Hi, Miss Jones.
How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, see you later.
Now that script is pretty basic, but he could use it with the bus driver, people in the hallway, people at his church, people in the community, and with me. Almost everybody starts conversations in a pretty typical manner. Hey, how are you? So it's important to have a canned response to that question so that you are socially included. If someone says, hey, how are you? And a student says, how are you? The person that they're talking with is not going to communicate back. It's going to be end all on the conversation. So to have a canned response that the student can pull out, delayed echolalia or immediate, by using scripting is a great way to improve communication for students and really get them included in social interactions. Freebie alert! I actually have scripting bubbles that you can get for free. If you look in the show notes, you'll see the link to get those and use them in the classroom. Script out what it is that you want to say with the student with the interactions and then review them with the student repeatedly over and over until it's automatic. It's a great way to start building that scripting and social communication. The last strategy when you're working with a student who has echolalia is actually to teach the phrase, I don't know. Now, I have teenage kids, I can tell you, they say that all the time. All the time. Who broke this lamp? I don't know. What happened to the money on the counter? I don't know. Who ate all the cereal? I don't know. I don't know is a pretty good canned response for a student in general. So we can have our student learn to put this delayed or immediate phrase at the end of sentences so that it normalizes their response and it doesn't make them so unapproachable in terms of social communication. I would rather hear a kid say, how's the weather? I don't know, as opposed to, how's the weather? Weather. Doing that ends the conversation. So, teaching I don't know as a canned response at the end of a question or phrase is a great way to substitute in. You can do that one of two ways. You can start by putting that phrase at the end of your question statement so the student with immediate echolalia repeats it, which would sound something like this. Do you know the ingredients to chocolate? Don't know? Don't know. So I've added the don't know at the end of my phrase so that the student will repeat it at the end of theirs. All right, y'all, I really hope these strategies and tricks will support you in the classroom and help you to help that student who's been struggling with authentic communication and has either delayed or immediate echolalia. The number one thing to remember with this, though, is that you have to be consistent. You can't try these strategies on Monday and Tuesday, forget all about them. You've got to do them day after day. It takes a long time to correct or improve echolalia in students, so it's really important that you stay consistent, you allow that extra wait time, and then you will see a change in communication. Promise. All right, it's Io here from Noodle Nook. Stay strong and teach on.